Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is I, the informant, bringing you another critical update here. So this is something that Tucker Carlson touched on about a week ago, and this is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now. And this is the World Health Organization pandemic. It's an international treaty on pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. Now, this is probably one of the scariest things that could ever happen to this country. And this is something that Biden is poised to sign if he hasn't signed it already. I mean, there's something very nefarious about going on with this, in my opinion. And I could be wrong, but I'm going to go over some of the screenshots that I took of some of the important outlines in this from this proposed treaty. So, basically, how I understand it is that it gives the World Health Organization full control over what they classify as a pandemic and has the power to advise countries to shut down their entire economy and their entire populace and lock everything down because the World Health Organization tells them that whatever they deem to be a pandemic is threatening their country and threatening by all extents, and to that extent is the world. So, and a lot of people, of course, now Tucker initially said no one's really covering it, and when I had initially searched for it, he was right. I couldn't find anything anywhere except for one article that was saying Tucker Carlson's fear-mongering, blah, 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 blah. Well, now, of course, Reuters, with their ever so popular and ever so trustworthy fact check, the World Health Organization is not planning to implement a pandemic treaty that would strip member states of sovereignty. Okay. I hate it when they do this. They're right, but not in the sense that they mean. Sure, it doesn't give the World Health Organization complete and total power over all countries when it comes to what they deem as a pandemic, although that's what it certainly sounds like. So what they're saying is that no, they're not going to have control over countries. It's like, well, yes, okay, fine. You may be right to a degree, but let's just say this. If the World Health Organization has this treaty and is the one who can tell countries, hey, this pandemic is popping up in your country. We're calling it a pandemic, and it's going to destroy everything, and you need to lock down immediately. What's a country going to say? No. Well, Trump would say no. Well, okay. Correction. Future Trump, I hope, would say no. Obviously, the previous one didn't. He fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And I think he understands that now. That's why that's why he got out of the World Health Organization. It's a corrupt organization. Anyway, Tucker does plenty of good coverage on how corrupt that stupid establishment is. But they are basically, I see it as the countries in the World Health Organization working hand in hand. Because it's not going to benefit just the World Health Organization. It's going to benefit the leaders, too, because they're going to be given more power at the recommendation of the World Health Organization. They're going to say, well, if these professionals and trusted scientists and trusted doctors at the World Health Organization are telling us that we're in a pandemic, well, we must be in a pandemic, so we need to shut down and take your freedoms away and give ourselves more power and do all the things that you would normally do, but you're not allowed to do. Only we can do it because we're in control. That's exactly how it's going to happen. Yes, they're not giving total control over to the World Health Organization. They're working hand in glove with the World Health Organization to control us. So let's go over some of these fine details of this treaty. First one, Planned Pandemic Treaty. So WHO Secretariat to play the leading, convening, and coordinating role in operational aspects of an emergency response to a pandemic. That's exactly what I was just saying. They're not going to be telling countries what to do. They're going to be advising them and assisting them in what to do, and all under the guise of whatever they deem to be a pandemic. Just like I said, they're going to be using the World Health Organization as a scapegoat to implement all the same terrifying lockdowns that the last pandemic caused us, but far, far worse going into the future, because they know that the vast majority of people will fall for it. So moving on to the next one. So the World Health Organization, so they will consult with and attempt to obtain verification from the state party in whose territory the event is allegedly occurring in. So basically, that's just them basically saying, well, we're going to verify if you're in a pandemic, which, always is going to be yes, especially since the current one is never going to end. It's never going away. It's going to be here forever. It's a new SARS virus that's just going to be here forever. So they're going to work with whatever country, and they're going to say, hey, here's our recommendation, and then some backdoor deals will be made that no one will ever see in public, and you'll be shut down. So moving on, whole of government and whole of society approach to pandemic preparedness. Basically what this means is they want to recondition society to be dealing with this, quote, new normal that they said. The World Health Organization leader, whatever, I forget his name, but he was on the record saying that, we know people are locked up and they want to return to normal, but people need to realize that the old way of life may never be able to return, or something along those lines. So that's really what this is all about, okay? So we'll go to 4. So the World Health Organization, so the countries are going to inform World Health Organization about the establishment of its national competent authority responsible for overall implementation of the IHR, I forget what that acronym is, that will be recognized and held accountable. So again, they're looking for, so basically what they're doing is that the states will have their own authority responsible for implementation of these shutdowns. So again, this is more government control, more people in positions of power that are unelected controlling your lives and telling you what you can and cannot do. So national and global coordinated actions to address the misinformation and disinformation and stigmatization that undermine public health. Here we go again. So their Ministry of Truth just failed abysmally because they couldn't handle memes on the internet, and the ancient Skeletor Taylor Lorenz had to go, and of course it was her that would write this article, had to go and try and defend Nita Jankowicz over the horrible harassment and bullying that she experienced online. It's like, get the F out of here. That person deserved every bit of it because she was the one peddling misinformation in the first place. And don't even get me started on Taylor Lorenz, the journalist whose only real skill is doxing people unlawfully, in my opinion, in order to ruin their lives so she can write another journalistic piece to get her another paycheck, because her life is so bankrupt and morally devoid that this is the only pleasure that she can get out of, is making other people as miserable as she is. Anyway, side rant. But that whole thing failed. So what are they going to do? They're going to use the World Health Organization to control misinformation, disinformation, and stigmatization. Here we go again. So we're going to move on. The World Health Organization Secretariat to build capacity to deploy proactive countermeasures against misinformation and social media attacks. And the key word there is social media. So basically, they're going to be working with social media companies. Now, hopefully, if the Twitter purchase goes through with Elon Musk and he is who he advertises himself to be, it won't be as effective. He'll have control over Twitter, but now that thing is on the chopping block. We don't know if it's actually going to go through. But again, they're going to use social media. I mean, you already saw the horrors on YouTube and their censorship of literally anything involving, the unspecified virus from unknown origin. That's a credit to Critical Drinker. Yeah. So, but we already know how bad it is on YouTube. I'm basically making videos here on YouTube as well as BitChute and Rumble just to cover my base. I mean, YouTube is like the default, and I'll be here until they remove the channel, which won't happen anytime soon because I don't think I've had a subscriber to the YouTube channel in months. So it just shows you the kind of traffic they give to quote unquote new creators like me. So there you go. The World Health Secretariat to build capacity to deploy proactive countermeasures. So the World Health Organization is going to deploy countermeasures against people and work with social media companies to implement that stuff. So moving on. So the World Health Organization, develop standards for producing a digital version of the International Certificate of Vaccination and Prophylaxis. Here we go again. What they all told us wouldn't happen is going to happen. Vaccine passports. Remember that was like conspiracy theory, fear-mongering stuff like a year and a half ago? Well, now it's a reality. And folks, I'm so glad I don't really care about traveling. The only reason I've ever traveled recently is because of my fiance. I'm perfectly fine staying. Like, I'm a homebody. I'm an introvert by nature. I like having time to myself most of the time. And so if I never really traveled anywhere, it wouldn't bother me. Also, I have more important things to spend my money on than traveling at this point. But that aside, but this is like people's worst nightmare. Well, people who aren't like completely plugged into the matrix, so to say. Some people will just go happily along with it. I mean, I still see it today around where I live. People wearing masks outside. Side rant. I just got back from an errand I had to run earlier this morning, and as I was driving back, I drove by somebody who was passing me. Their window was down in their car, and they were wearing a mask. Funniest part about it, it was a woman driving, and the man in the passenger seat was not wearing a mask. Oh, it's just so insane. And you just have to sit back and say, I can't believe like that person is living in a completely different reality than I'm living in. It's so bizarre. It's like the virtual world has like seeped into the physical because we're all seeing things differently and we're all seeing the world completely differently from one another. So, all right, sorry about that. But yeah, so basically vaccine passports are coming with this treaty. And they're going to tell you, and they're going to basically tell countries who they can and can't let into their country. So 7, so 8. WHO, truly global end-to-end platform for vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics, and essential supplies, shifting from a model where innovation is left to the market to a model aimed at delivering global public goods. Basically, a one world organization. Basically, the World Health Organization is just going to take over all of it, along with governments. Basically, more government controlled, stripping this type of stuff, innovation away from free markets and just letting it be run by government approved associations and organizations. How could this go wrong? And finally, number 9. This is part of number 8. Equitable and effective access to vaccines, therapeutics, diagnostics, and essential suppliers, and for clinical trials. Equitable. Again, it just comes down to equity. That's all they care about is this equity, equality of outcome, BS. And that brings us to the end of this terrible thing, except for, of course, let me just go ahead and start Xing out of these real quick. Sorry. brings us back to this. And of course, everybody's doing the rounds. Reuters, Washington Post, basically talking about trying to defend this whole thing, and it's horrifying. And sometimes, yes, I do reminisce in the days when I did not know anything, and like Cypher said in The Matrix, ignorance is bliss. So, with that being said, get your popcorn ready, because this is going to be a very, very interesting months and years ahead of us. And well, some would say we really only have one shot to save this country, and that's this November, and in November 2 years from now. So, and that's if everything goes right and according to plan, and if a certain orange man runs again, hopefully he's learned his lessons. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here. If I can, I'm going to try and... I remember. So there was one thing I wanted to relate to this. I'm glad I remembered. This is real quick. It won't take too much time. Basically, what Joe Biden is doing by signing this treaty is allowing a foreign entity to not fully, but essentially have control over what the populace can and can't do in certain situations. Because, like I said, we all know that if the Democrats and the globalists that are in our government continue to have power, they're going to continue working with the WHO, and they're going to continue doing everything that the WHO says. And it just reminds me of, it's like the forefathers, to a lesser degree, fought and died to free us from something exactly like this in regards to the British Empire, who had control over the colonies. It's so interesting how history doesn't repeat but rhymes. This is a different situation, different circumstances, but overall the same fundamental problem: being controlled by a foreign entity that's not within the United States and has no control. It literally has no constitutional authority over us, but they're going to do it anyway. And that's why that brings me to I just remembered. Give me a second here. Let me try and find it. There was one other thing I wanted to tie into that. Okay, found it. Sorry about that. Quick jump cut there. So this was something that in regards to the shooting in Uvalde, but I want to the overall message here at the bottom of this tweet is something I want to touch on. So Jesse Kelly says the GOP, both sides want school shootings to stop. The communists, aka the left, the GOP wants more school shootings. Whatever you think about those arguments, only one side is moving the cultural needle towards their side. One critical part of changing the loser mentality of the right is getting them to stop assigning their value system to the communists. aka the leftists. I cannot possibly describe to you how little regard these people have for your value system. You're playing different games. And then below, Aaron McIntyre, the left knows it is battling for control of the country. The right still thinks it's in a negotiation with misguided but well-meaning people with roughly the same values. It's exactly how I feel about this situation. This is what I believe. Right now, currently, the left, they fight and play for ultimate power and control, whatever the cost. The right, they play to compromise and basically work with the left. I think what I said was right. The right essentially plays for power as well, but then they try to be civil at the same time. They play by the rules while the other side is breaking all the rules. They harass, intimidate, and coerce and blackmail while the right does everything by the book. Now, I'm not saying that the right need to go and break laws or anything. I'm just saying it's time to recognize that we're not dealing with people with just opposite opinions of us. We're dealing with people who vehemently hate and disagree with everything that we stand for as Americans, and they're trying to, how can I say, extirpate all of those values. You can look that one up if you don't know what that means. All of those values and replace it with their own, and completely transform this country to the point where it's completely unrecognizable from what it was meant to be. And I think it's time to start putting on our big boy boots and kicking these old establishment neocon rhino MFers out of the frickin' Congress and get some real leaders in there to stop this madness. Because I can't agree more. This is exactly how I feel about our current situation in our country. These idiots in Washington think we're still dealing with American people here with some different values from us. Oh, shucks, Oh, they called me racist again. I guess I have to go on Twitter and talk about how I'm not. This is... It's so weak-kneed and pathetic that these leaders in Washington keep trying the same old tactics that never work, and all it does is eventually lead to them giving up more ground. It's so ridiculous, and I can't even it's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. That's why so many of these elections, local elections, state and local elections, are so important, guys. I can't stress that enough. The needle shifted a little bit in Virginia with Glenn Youngkin winning the governorship. But guys, Georgia is screwed. Pennsylvania is screwed. Michigan is another place that's screwed. I just saw, again, let me jump cut real quick. Here we go. Sorry about that, folks. So yeah, Michigan is screwed. Right here, Michigan Bureau of Elections says top GOP gubernatorial candidates ineligible for ballot. Oh, gee. More election fortification? So two of the most prominent Republicans running for governor in Michigan to get rid of that awful, awful wench, Gretchen Whitmer. They've lost two of their most, gubernatorial election. Chief James Craig of the Detroit Police Department, which I honestly thought had a fair shot, and then businessman Perry Johnson, two of the most prominent Republicans running against Governor Gretchen Whitmer, both failed to produce the valid signatures necessary to get on the ballot. Gubernatorial candidates are required to submit 15,000 valid signatures. This is so stupid. Why? Why? That's all I have. That's my question. Why? Why do they have to produce these signatures? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand these laws. I don't understand. Look, according to the Bureau, the affected candidates were victimized via a series of petitioners who obtained nothing but invalid or otherwise unusable signatures, putting them well below the mark. Well, who decides that? Who decides that? We all know how corrupt Michigan is. It was all over the place in the 2020 election, And it says right here, the affected candidates were victimized via a series of petitioners who obtained nothing but invalid or unusable signatures. First off, who are these people? Who are these people that victimized these two candidates? And if that was the case, well, shouldn't you give them some extension to try and get valid signatures? Instead of just tossing them out altogether? This has completely screwed the Michigan election every which way from Sunday, however it says. This is the stuff that we got to put up with. We look at Georgia and how Brian Kemp and Raffensperger are back on the ballot. What the hell is going on? And I already heard the rumors, or maybe they aren't rumors, maybe they're true, that Democrats were voting in that primary to get those two idiots back on the ballot. It's so crazy, And I know I'm kind of combining two topics into one video, but I just got off on a tangent here. And I am kind of running low on personal time here before I gotta do other things for the day. But it just really like when you read stuff like this, it's so hard to not get, you know, disheveled and down and lose hope and all that stuff. But seriously, who's left? Who's left in Michigan to challenge Whitmer? I mean, seriously. That's all I gotta say. Like this is terrible. And then Pennsylvania, I mean, what are they still counting ballots now? for Oz and McCormick, two candidates I really wasn't all that crazy about. I blame this all on Sean Parnell. He should have just sucked it up and went with the election anyway. But I get it, you know, family comes first, I guess. You know, it does. But still, like, it's so bad. It's so bad. And these are important states too. Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan. These are important states. You know, and not to mention Madison Cawthorn. I mean, we all know the stupid stuff that he got caught with doing, and don't get me wrong, I totally disagree with with those actions that he was caught in. But let's not beat around the bush. He got completely railroaded by his own state, by a judge. It was the establishment GOP went after him, went into court and redrew his district that cut out the strong populist portion in that rural area of his district, which were his most prominent populist supporters. And despite all that, he still almost won. So, I mean, if there's a silver lining, it's that, you know. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling because if I do, I'll go on for another 20 minutes. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to try and get one more video in. If I don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble. Again, thank you so much to all of you subscribers. Well, I'll say the few subscribers that I have across all three of those channels. I don't think I have anybody on Rumble, but still, got to keep doing it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the Memorial Day weekend. Have a great time. If it's beautiful outside, get out there, enjoy the weather, cook some burgers and hot dogs, and wave an American flag, and say thanks to all the veterans and all that stuff. So I'll catch you all later. Take care.